The system practically bends over backwards to encourage small businesses. There's no large business administration.
There's not a mayor or a county commissioner or a state legislator or a governor in this country that doesn't want to see more businesses.
People see that as the all-American dream, you know, is owning your own business.
There were definitely times when you just feel completely defeated.
They took our houses, everything they could get their hands on.
You lost your house?
Yes.
Did you have anything left?
Yeah, 73 Ford.
They didn't know what they were getting into, how deep they were getting into it, and they felt it was easy to get in, easy to get out. You don't get out of business that easy. You don't walk away from it. There are people who are going to follow you for the rest of your days.
Scapegoats are easy to find. All you have to do is look in the mirror if you want to see the person who ought to be blamed for failure or success.
Here are the front lines of our economy, the main streets of America, where small business people battle to survive. It is not always a pretty picture. The body count is high. Within the first 4 years, half of all small businesses fail. In 10 years, 85% will be gone. Yet small business is the most dynamic sector of our economy, accounting for more than 90% of the nation's 17 million businesses, a staggering figure. During the last 3 years, industries dominated by small businesses created jobs at nearly twice the rate of industries dominated by major corporations. For America's young people preparing to enter the job market, these streets hold more promise than this canyon of corporate towers. I'm Edwin Newman. During the next half hour, we will examine why so many small businesses, in spite of their promise, fail. And we'll be looking also at the components of small business success. Stay with us.
I thought I was doing great, and it ended up I was doing everything all wrong.
There are few things in life more invigorating than the prospect of owning your own business. It's a well-established part of the American dream. It's true also that few things in life are as devastating as having that dream turn into a nightmare. The pain of business failure is deeply felt and often permanent. It's just awful. This is Jim Todd of Foxborough, Massachusetts. Mr. Todd is a virtuoso of lawnmower repair. He can put screwdriver and wrench to the most hopeless old cutter and have its blades whirring youthfully in no time. As a repairman, Jim's career had peaked. To improve his life for himself and his family, Jim decided he had to operate his own business. So, with his wife Ann, who was somewhat reluctant, Jim began looking for an existing retail repair shop they could buy. What they found was B&G equipment.
I looked at the top figure of a business that was up for sale at a very reasonable cost, but I was only looking at gross sales. I'm looking at going from my mind, the business field mind, which I really didn't have. I went from making $160 a week take-home pay to a business that was making $250,000 gross.
The Todds were blinded by such a big number. With Ann's support, Jim bought B&G equipment. Almost immediately, he fell on hard times. As a business owner, Jim discovered, before you pay yourself, you have to pay the overhead.
I had 4 or 5 people on the payroll, which was there prior to me anyway. When I bought the place, I took it all over. They were going home with good money, and I figured, well, mine will come someday.
Jim figured wrong. He made several critical mistakes. First, he went to the back room repair shop instead of the front office and its daily flow of business. Then he turned that responsibility over to a person who claimed to be a specialist at the nuts and bolts of business paperwork.
The person I hired to do that job for me apparently didn't do it. All he would say was if I'd get a notice in the mail about something or taxes or whatever, I'd call him on the phone and tell him about it, and he said, well, no problem, just put it in the mail, send it to me, and I'll take care of it. And that's exactly what happened for 2 years. I think he just forgot to take care of it.
Tax and legal obligations to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the federal government were being ignored, and B&G Equipment was falling behind in its monthly payments to creditors. Jim's response was to bury himself in his work, convinced that working harder would make the problem go away.
I wanted to hide. I wanted to hide away from that problem, and the problem just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger until it just explodes.
The Internal Revenue Service and the tax collector for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts began knocking on the doors of B&G Equipment and the house of Jim and Ann Todd. The Todds had tied up their personal security in Jim's dream of building a self-reliant future. Now they faced the very real possibility of losing everything, including their home.
There were definitely times when you just feel completely defeated, completely overwhelmed by different creditors or different situations that you do not feel comfortable with.
Threats.
But
Really?
yes, threats and
Total
No sympathy.
None. No, there was, they got you down, stand on him, squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. And in the interim, we would have our little corner fights and yell at each other because who else could we yell at?
To stave off bankruptcy and hold on to their home, Jim had to sell B&G Equipment in a deal that has him working off his debt as an employee of this business he once owned. The Todds were luckier than some. They survived their ordeal, their family and their love intact. Failed businesses are not always so kind. Listen to the story of Charlie Bacon, as told by his new accountant, Cecil Moulton.
Well, Charlie started his own business, something he always wanted to do, and he and a partner gathered their resources and opened up a machine shop. They started running on some pretty rough times. The partner became somewhat nervous and wanted out. Charlie still saw a future and saw the continuation of his dream, so he went out and took a second mortgage on his house and bought out his partner. Things became tough from a working capital viewpoint, and he ended up borrowing the payroll tax monies to pay other bills and became in trouble with the IRS. The pressures on the business began to show not only on himself but on his home life. The wife was petrified over the thoughts of losing her house. She was getting calls from vendors, creditors, visits to the house from the IRS. Apparently she could take no more of it, and she up and left Charlie with the 2 children. Charlie put everything he could into the business to try to save it, and he couldn't do it. The bank foreclosed on the loans, the IRS foreclosed in the business, and they forced him into bankruptcy. The bank ended up taking his house. The IRS and the bankruptcy judge took all of the equipment and sold it at auction. Ironically enough, his partner who left him was the one who bought up the assets at 10 cents on the dollar and opened up another business and is a very wealthy man today.
The stories of Jim Todd and Charlie Bacon are gut-wrenching, and they're commonplace. Small business can be dangerous for anybody who's not prepared, but for those who are fully armed for the battle, it's absolutely exhilarating.
At 950 would have been a million. At $1,050,000, $1,050,000, at $1 million would have given $1,050,000.
These are the trappings of success. Start from scratch, and they are, to put it mildly, not easy to come by. But they can be had. For the entrepreneur with the right mix of pluck, luck, and business savvy, almost anything is possible. If you don't believe that, ask Frank Lautenberg, Leo Lawson, or Barry Weisbord. Barry Weisbord is a bloodstock agent, a person who specializes in the buying and selling of breeding rights to thoroughbred stallions. When Barry got into the business, it worked like this. A male racehorse retiring from the track would be sent to a farm like this one to breed to female thoroughbreds. A healthy male, called a stallion, is expected to breed to at least 40 females each breeding season. It is not uncommon for the rights to these 40 breedings to be owned by 40 different people. There are hundreds of stallions, which means thousands of breeding rights and thousands of owners spread across the globe. 5 years ago, Barry Weisbord lived and worked in a small apartment. He spent hours on the phone trying to match buyers and sellers who were frequently half a world apart. It could take weeks to bring them together, only to have the sale disappear.
5 or 6 years of encountering a series of problems, mostly dealing with inefficiency of marketplace, led us to think about having a stallion season sale in 1983. We consulted with some other top stallion share owners in the industry and really found that almost everybody had universally the same problems.
Barry had an idea to deal with these problems. He called it Matchmaker Breeders Exchange.
This is an 85 season to the Great Northern Dancer.
We'll start the bidding in 500,000, please.
This is Weisbord's idea come to life. He established a computer-based exchange that links horsemen around the world to a single trading center in Lexington, Kentucky. Twice a year, these horsemen come together for face-to-face trading. The rest of the year, they trade via computer. What once took weeks now takes place with a phone call. In Matchmaker's first full year of operating, gross sales exceeded $60 million. Barry has since moved to a larger apartment. Frank Lautenberg has moved to Washington, D.C. He works here as New Jersey's junior United States Senator. 34 years ago, he lived here in Paterson, New Jersey, where his father was a mill worker. The mill was powered by those falls. He met Joe and Henry Taub, whose father was a mill worker also. Joe and Henry Taub had a company called Automatic Payroll. They calculated payrolls for a few local businesses operating from the basement of a coffee shop. It was a Spartan endeavor, but Lautenberg was fascinated by the possibilities.
I pleaded with them to let me go out and be a salesman for the company. At no expense. I said, just pay for the business cards. That time, I don't know, 100 business cards cost $3. So I went out and I sold for a year with no recompense at all. And after a year, I said, okay, I want to go on commission. And I did that. And pretty soon I was making more money than the company was making. And it was in the January of 1954 that I persuaded Henry Taub to hire me. I thought we had a wonderful idea, a wonderful concept. And that was the beginning of my full-time service with ADP.
ADP, Automatic Data Processing. Today it is a publicly held company with revenues last year of $1 billion. It has 18,000 employees and 125,000 clients, including most of the Fortune 500. From a coffee shop basement to business success and the United States Senate. Leo Lawson found the American dream, too. He is founder and chairman of Comprehensive Accounting Corporation of Aurora, Illinois, a franchised accounting firm that specializes in the needs of small businesses, providing a monthly accounting, bookkeeping, tax, and business consulting service. Last year, Comprehensive's network of more than 425 franchised accountants servicing more than 20,000 small businesses had gross sales exceeding $55 million. Lawson achieved this success by recognizing the needs of small business. It happened during a college accounting course that prepared students to work only for America's major corporations. Leo thought something was missing, so he asked the professor a question that served as the seed for Comprehensive Accounting Corporation.
Why is it that we only discuss big businesses? Who takes care of all of these little businesses? I noticed as I go up and down the main street here in Champaign that there's such a huge number of businesses. I never see a big business. I see an awful lot of small businesses. The instructor says, Mr. Lawson, the accounting profession is not concerned with small business. As a professor, that's not answering my question. Who takes care of the accounting needs of these people? Because certainly they need help, the same as the big businesses do. And his response to me when I asked the second time was, Mr. Lawson, sit down.
Leo sat down, but not for long. He knew at that moment there was a good living to be made providing his services to small business people. In time, Lawson saw the potential of standardizing the service to the degree that it could be franchised. Frank Lautenberg, Leo Lawson, and Barry Weisbord, flesh and blood testimony to the potential of the entrepreneurial spirit. Smiling comes easy to them. No wonder. But why is it that some people succeed beyond their most self-indulgent fantasy, while other people fail with a devastation beyond their comprehension? We'll examine some of the answers to this question in just a moment.
So the first advice would be, are you prepared?
There are no guarantees that you will establish a successful small business. You need to be a good business manager. But there is a world of good advice to be had from people who ought to know, and we talked to a batch of them. Jim Sanders and Frank Swain of the Small Business Administration, Jeffrey Josephs of the United States Chamber of Commerce, Susan Garber of the Wharton School Entrepreneurial Center of the University of Pennsylvania, Bill Flanagan, a senior editor with Forbes magazine, Bill Cherkasky of the International Franchise Association, and of course our successful entrepreneurs, Lautenberg, Lawson, and Weisbord. With each question put to them came answers surprisingly similar. There's a resounding consensus on small business issues. For example, on this question, why do so many small businesses fail?
Most small businesses fail because they're poorly managed.
Most small businesses fail not because of inadequate capital or opportunities, but because of lack of management skills.
Almost all of the studies and people that have looked to it come back to the issue of management.
The problem is most people don't know how to manage themselves.
You don't have the management know-how, you're not going to make it.
An inadequate knowledge of the general area of running a business.
Management expertise.
Mismanagement is the most frequently singled out reason for small business failures. In the simplest terms, it means you don't know what you're doing. Mismanagement does not skulk alone in the shadowy storerooms of small business. It travels with a companion.
Cash flow problems.
Cash flow.
Cash flow.
Cash flow.
Cash flow problems. In the simplest terms, that means you don't have enough money. So, here are the two major reasons for small business failures. You don't know what you're doing, and you have no money to do it with. Now, this may seem too obvious even to talk about, yet time and again, these problems kill small business.
A lot of people that we meet have a great idea. They think they know how to sell a product, and they go headlong into it without taking a look at what I might call the business side of the ledger.
Many of our clients know a product, have a skill, are sophisticated in a specific area, but don't know a whole lot about running a business. And that's where the problems come from.
This is the hard truth of most failed businesses. Their founders took what may have been a good idea and ran too quickly to the marketplace, only to find out that knowing a good idea is not synonymous with knowing good business procedure. Good business begins at one place and one place only, the 5-year business plan.
You've got to have a plan. And it can't be, I'm going to work harder at that which I've already demonstrated I can do well. That's not enough. Just because you're willing to work more hours doesn't mean that your business can function.
You need to know enough about the area of the law to know whether you should be a proprietorship, a partnership, a corporation. You need to know enough about advertising or about sales or about merchandising.
Long-range planning and financial planning are important tools and practices that a lot of small businesses don't plan, but you have to know where you're going and how quickly you think you're going to get there.
You need to know how to hire people, how to train them, how to motivate them, how to use pay plans to cause an employee to be more effective.
The business plan is absolutely essential. And you know the thing is really funny about this, David? The average person starting out on his own will root around, and finally it will come to him or her that a business plan is necessary. And they'll sit down in front of a blank piece of paper as if no one has ever done this before, which is lunacy. The thing to do is to find a model.
Where do you find a model for a business plan? Bill Cherkasky of the International Franchise Association thinks, not surprisingly, that franchising is the answer.
Better than others. Find a good franchise system to hook up with and do exactly as you're told. You'll be successful because they help find the site, they help involve you in financing, they provide the operations manual, they tell you what to do. It's like a marriage. You work it out together. If you follow the edicts, the operations manual, the rules, you'll be a success.
It is a fact that franchise businesses succeed at a much greater rate than independent small businesses. But franchising is not for everyone. The truly independent small business entrepreneurs are just as much in need of a model. Where do they turn?
When you get into business and dealing with business people, you have to be business-like, and lawyers and accountants are a hell of a place to start.
Most small business people probably don't seek any outside help. That's the mistake.
They reach out and ask for help, not necessarily from the government. In fact, in many cases, that's the last place to go, but to local accountants, local lawyers, local bankers.
The small business world is fraught with all the problems of the big business world, but you don't have a lot of departments to work with, so you've got to wear all your hats. And that means you need outside advice, and knowing when to seek it is important.
You wouldn't do your own appendectomy, so why would you sit down and do your own taxes? No, you go to professionals.
Elementary, isn't it? You need a guide to make it through the jungle. Yet, an alarming number of small businesses are started with minimal professional help. Without exception, the small business people we spoke to who failed, including Jim Todd and Charlie Bacon, had almost no contact with accountants, lawyers, or bankers for anything more than a loan, their initial incorporation, or their yearly tax work. They entered business with the most rudimentary business plan, if they had one at all. It's a mistake none will make a second time. We've looked at 3 successful businesses that might be considered big, but ADP, Matchmaker, and Comprehensive Accounting Corporation began in the same way that virtually all new businesses do, small, in a coffee shop basement, in a tiny apartment, at a kitchen table. They succeeded where other businessmen did not. Why? Primarily because they were prepared. Remember Charlie Bacon? Today, Charlie is well prepared. He has started a new business, and he frequently consults his accountant, Cecil Moulton, who provides Charlie with a computer-generated printout on a monthly basis of his business well-being, and that's complete with various types of computer graphics. Now, if you're thinking of starting a business, or if you're currently in a business that's floundering, statistically, the odds are that you're making the mistakes we've reviewed in the last half hour. But devastating business failure is not inevitable.
So the first question then becomes, should you be in business for yourself? Number 2, if you're already in business for yourself, then get thyself quickly over to some night courses in these various areas, and there are many good ones that are offered by local colleges and universities.
There are consultants whose business it is to help people start businesses. And there are seminars, there are videotapes you can buy, there are books, and you can hire the consultant by the hour and sit down with your specific problem. I would start off with the seminar approach. Some of these seminars are darn good, and the investment is very small. And over a weekend or over a few days, you can find out whether or not you really have what it takes and whether or not your idea is sound enough. You can get enough basic information in a short period of time to get a no or a no-go or no-go signal.
You cannot overemphasize these simple facts. Find a lawyer, find a banker, find an accountant. Surround yourself with people who will work with you to meet the needs of your business. You can't do it alone. The search for these people is the most crucial part of your business operation. I'm Edwin Newman. Good luck.
We begin with a basic recognition The greatest innovations for new jobs, technologies, and economic vigor today come from a small but growing circle of heroes, the small business people, American entrepreneurs, the men and women of faith, intellect, and daring who take great risks to invest in and invent our future. The majority of the 8 million new jobs created over the last 2.5 years were created by small enterprises, enterprises often born in the dream of one human heart. To young Americans wondering tonight, where will I go? What will I do with my future? I have a suggestion. Why not set out with your friends on the path of adventure and try to start up your own business? Follow in the footsteps of those 2 college students who launched one of America's great computer firms from the garage behind their house. You too can help us unlock the doors to a golden future. You too can become leaders in this great new era of progress, the age of the entrepreneur.